Only in Kentucky can a woman open schools to teach adults to read by moonlight in the same county where a town was named after a rooster that won a cockfight. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky. One county at a time. All 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Rowan County. So Rowan County sits in northeastern Kentucky in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, about 280 square miles of dissected upland terrain cut by narrow creek valleys. The Licking River runs along part of its border. Triplett Creek drains about 65% of the county. The highest point, Limestone Knob, sits at about 1,435 feet. The terrain is steep enough that usable flat land has always been scarce, concentrated along stream bottoms, which is why most of what the county built was built along those corridors. The county was formed in 1856 from portions of Fleming and Morgan counties and named for John Rowan, a Kentucky politician and jurist who served in Congress and the U.S. Senate. The county seat is Morehead, founded in 1854 by Colonel John Hargis, and named for James T. Morehead, who served as Kentucky's 12th governor from 1834 to 1836. Morehead sits about 45 miles east of Lexington on US 60 and I-64. The first documented Euro-American settlers arrived around 1791. Farmers was the community name, established itself about 10 miles west of Morehead, along what is now US 60. The area's fertility and access to water made it the logical starting point. Morehead came later, grew into the county seat function, and eventually pulled economic gravity away from farmers entirely. Farmers today has a population of about 250 or so. The Civil War didn't produce major battles in Rowan County, but it produced enough guerrilla violence to leave a permanent mark. Confederate raiders burned the Morehead courthouse down on March 21, 1864, destroying every county record before that date. But what happened after the Civil War may have been worse than the war itself, at least for Rowan County. The Rowan County War ran from 1884 to 1887 and killed at least 20 people. Started on Election Day in August of 1884 with a brawl between Floyd Tolliver and a man named John Martin. Before the day was over, someone was dead. The killing continued for 3 years, with sides forming along political and family lines. The Tollivers controlling Democratic networks, the Martins aligned with Republican families. Craig Tolliver took over as Morehead's town marshal and effectively ran the county through intimidation. The state militia was called in 3 times. None of it worked. The feud ended in the summer of 1887 when a posse organized by Daniel Boone Logan surrounded Craig Tolliver and several of his men in a 2-hour gunfight through the center of Morehead. Tolliver was killed, and so were 3 others. The Tollivers' control of the county was broken in one afternoon. A state report from General Sam Hill during the worst years actually recommended that the governor dissolve Rowan County entirely because of the violence. The General Assembly declined, but the county's reputation was in ruins and the people who lived there knew it. In 1887, the same year the feud ended, a man named Frank Button and his wife Phoebe arrived in Morehead at the invitation of the Disciples of Christ, who had come during the feud years to stabilize the community. The Buttons opened Morehead Normal School in a rented cottage. 1 student showed up on the first day of class in October of 1887. The school grew, it changed names several times. Morehead Normal School became Morehead State Normal School, then Morehead State Normal School and Teachers College, then Morehead State Teachers College, then Morehead State College, then Morehead State University in 1966. The university today has more than 8,000 students, offers over 200 degree programs, and is ranked among the top public regional universities in the South. The man who did the most to build it into what it became was a man named Adrian Doran. Doran was born in Graves County, Kentucky in 1909. He was a minister, a school teacher, a state legislator, and eventually Speaker of the Kentucky House of Representatives. He earned a doctorate from UK in 1950 and was named president of Morehead State in 1954. He stayed in that role until 1977, 23 years, and in that time transformed a rural teachers college into a full-scale state university with expanded academic programs, new dorms, and a growing campus, and a student center that bears his name. He also integrated the campus at a time when integration was neither easy nor inevitable. Cora Wilson Stewart was born in Rowan County in January of 1875, the daughter of a physician and a school teacher. She trained at Morehead Normal School and the University of Kentucky and began teaching at age 20. By 1911, she was superintendent of Rowan County Schools and became the first woman elected president of the Kentucky Education Association. She noticed something about the county that made her angry. Rowan County had a significant adult illiteracy problem. Adults who had never learned to read or write were not going to walk through the doors of a school built for children during the day in front of their neighbors. So Stuart asked teachers to volunteer to teach at night. She opened the first class in September of 1911. She called them moonlight schools because they ran on moonlight nights, allowing people to travel safely to and from class in the dark. Teachers canvassed their districts door to door to find adults who needed help. Stuart produced a newspaper with a small vocabulary and area news, giving new readers something real to practice on. Once students could read, the curriculum expanded into history, health, agriculture, home economics, and civics. Within the first 2 sessions, 1,600 adults had enrolled. 350 of them learned to read and write. By 1914, Stuart had convinced the governor to create the Kentucky Literacy Commission and extend moonlight schools to every county in the state with the goal of ending illiteracy in Kentucky by 1920. Counties competed against each other to finish first. The prize for the winning county was Bibles for its students. Within 2 years, 40,000 Kentuckians had been taught to read and write through the program. 18 states eventually started their own versions. During World War I, when Selective Service reported that 700,000 American men were illiterate, Stuart developed a reader called The Soldier's First Book to help teach military recruits. She was chairman of the illiteracy committees of the National Council of Education. The original school building, moved from a holler about 8 miles north of Morehead, now sits on the campus of Morehead State University as a historic site. Stuart was 16 when the Rowan County War ended, and by the time she was in her mid-30s, she had launched a literacy program that eventually spread to 18 states. During the 1930s, the WPA built something else in Rowan County that almost nobody outside the county knows about. Small one-room fieldstone structures scattered across the rural hollers and back roads built by WPA laborers, each one designed as a neighborhood polling place. The idea was straightforward. If you lived in a remote part of Rowan County, you shouldn't have to travel miles to a central location just to vote. So the WPA built voting houses close to where people actually lived, 1 per precinct, each one constructed from locally quarried stone with beaded mortar. You'd walk to your precinct stone house on election day, cast your vote, and walk home. Morehead is the county seat with a population of about 7,000. Haldeman is a community about 6 miles northeast of Morehead, named for L.P. Haldeman, who established it in 1907 as a company town for his Kentucky Fire Brick Company. At its peak, several hundred workers ran 2 brick plants there. The first closed after World War II, the second closed in 1958. The school was built in 1936, closed in 1991, and was partially destroyed by an arsonist in 2007. The post office ran from 1907 to 1997. Haldeman came into existence for a specific industrial purpose, served it for 50 years, and then became a memory. The community of Rodburn started in the 1870s when the Hickson Rodburn Lumber Company built a sawmill there. The post office opened in 1888 and closed in 1922. The town is named for the company. Sharkey sits at the intersection of Kentucky Routes 158 and 801. The local explanation for the name invokes a cockfight. The township was establishing a post office and needed a name. There was a cockfight happening at the time between 2 roosters named Sharkey and Shanghai. Sharkey won. The post office, and subsequently the community, was named for the winning rooster. There is a small little community called Smile. Local tradition says residents smiled when the post office was granted. That's all I could find. Cave Run Lake sits south of Morehead along Kentucky Route 801, an 8,270-acre reservoir that the Army Corps of Engineers completed in 1973, drawing anglers from across the region, particularly for muskie, which is why the area markets itself as the muskie capital of the South. The Sheltowee Trace Trail runs 343 miles from the Big South Fork in Tennessee to northern Rowan County. It takes its name from the Sheltowee name given to Daniel Boone when Chief Blackfish adopted him into the tribe. Sheltowee means big turtle. The trail passes through Red River Gorge, Natural Bridge, Cumberland Falls, and the Cave Run Lake area before ending in Rowan County. In 2012, Morehead became a certified trail town, meaning the trail was rerouted through the city so hikers could walk in, resupply, eat, sleep, and walk back out. In 2015, Rowan County made national news. Kim Davis, the county clerk, refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples following the Supreme Court's Obergefell decision, citing her religious beliefs. She was held in contempt of federal court and jailed for 5 days. Presidential candidates weighed in. Mike Huckabee held a rally outside of jail. Saturday night, live parodied her. She met with the Pope, who the Vatican later clarified had not endorsed her position. Davis lost her re-election bid in 2018. A jury later ordered her to pay $100,000 in damages to the couple she had refused, and a judge added $260,000 in attorney's fees. In 2025, she asked the Supreme Court to reverse Obergefell entirely. The court declined without comment. She is no longer in office, and the legal bills are still being sorted out. In 2020, Morehead briefly became the center of the craft beer world. Sawstone Brewing opened in August of 2019. 3 childhood friends had grown up in Morehead, gone their separate ways, come back, and started a brewery together. The brewery was started in a historic building made from locally quarried sawed limestone. That's where the name came from. Sawstone. They had a 3-barrel system and made about 100 barrels of beer in their first year, selling all of it in their taproom. No distribution. In March 2020, right as the pandemic hit and their revenue dropped 80%, they received notice that Stone Brewing out of California, at the time, one of the bigger breweries in the country, had filed a trademark cancellation request at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, claiming that Sawstone's name was confusingly similar to Stone's registered trademarks for the word stone. This story hits close to home for me, being from the beer industry myself. Stone had filed similar requests against roughly 100 other businesses that year. Sawstone was one of the smallest targets on the list. Patrick Fannin from Dreaming Creek in Richmond brought all this to light on Twitter, and then my friend Kinsey Bernard broke the story via Kentucky Sports Radio. And then the craft beer community picked it up immediately, like on Porch Drinking. The whole thing became pretty embarrassing enough for Stone that their CEO, Greg Cook, had to issue a public statement. This was particularly awkward because Stone's founder, Greg, had made a video a couple of years earlier about their lawsuit against Keystone of Miller Coors, in which he declared that in the world of beer, the standalone word Stone was theirs. The video positioned Stone as the scrappy independent standing up to big corporate beer, Miller Coors. Now the same company was sending trademark cancellation requests to a 3-barrel taproom in Morehead during a pandemic. The craft beer community rallied around Sawstone. Thankfully, a GoFundMe for their legal defense raised thousands of dollars in days. The dispute was eventually resolved, and Sawstone is still open. Rowan County today has a population of about 25,000-ish. The county is working through a housing shortage of more than 1,000 units that local leaders have linked directly to industrial growth and workforce recruitment pressures. Broadband coverage is expanding but uneven. A build-ready industrial site off I-64 is the current focus for economic development recruitment. So, that's Rowan County. What'd I get wrong this time?